Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam President. Good to see you up there. And it's almost midnight, so I'll be respectful of everybody's time. I want to begin by saying that in nearly 16 years of working as a legislator on the Housing Committee and Planning and Development, and understanding the unique challenges that Connecticut faces in relations to providing affordable, accessible, and diverse housing, we have many challenges in our state. And I understand that this is been represented to be, in some cases, a crisis. I know there are challenges and there are urgencies to address those issues. But I think one of the frustrations we've had is the fact that we've not had an opportunity to have thoughtful, collaborative, and just really sustainable solutions. I'm very proud that it was nearly 7 or 8 years ago that we were able to lead a bipartisan change of the 830G legislation. First time in its history since its implementation over 30 plus years ago that we were able to make a change on a bipartisan collaborative basis to change the formula. And this was done because we had balance. We were able to make some changes to a bill that had every bit of good intention. But unfortunately, after nearly 30 years of effort and angst and deliberations and struggles, we have not addressed the problem that it tried to solve. We're trying to do that again today. But unfortunately, I think this bill, House Bill 8002, it's kind of coincidental that it's 3,000 digits away from 5002. But there's not a lot of difference. And it represents a top-down mandate that really marginalizes local leadership and local experts in the decision-making process. It really limits community engagement and really undermines the democratic process that should really guide decisions in some of the most personal and poignant decisions that affect people's lives. But as I kind of challenge this bill, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the relentless efforts of advocates. They've been passionate, they understand, they appreciate, but they also have a sense of mission that I greatly admire and respect. But I think part of that mission forgot that there are other people in this equation, that there are other people's lives that are impacted. People may have a greater sense of mission, but through these kind of efforts, as evident by this bill tonight, we are overriding and in some cases running over other people's rights and privileges and priorities. So for me, I'll be able to summarize, because for the past 2 days, I've been able to listen to a lot of the debate, from the House interaction for nearly 7 hours to the engagement that I've heard from my colleagues here tonight. It's not going to be enough as a debate, because we should have had a public hearing. We should have had a full deliberation in which the public, whose very lives and personal property and the quality of life will forever be changed, they're not heard. And for us as their representatives, the challenge we've had in this circle tonight is we are trying, in opposing this bill, to give them a voice that they did not have. And unfortunately, should this bill pass, their voice will not be heard when these mandates are imposed on them. That's disappointing. And to me, I think it's a disrespect to the legislative representative process. The second part I wanted to account for is the fact that this really is a sweeping override of local control. We've talked about that quite a bit. But when I think of local control denotes that the people whose lives are impacted, their expertise, in the unique aspect of their community offer a deeper understanding and a more practical and sustainable program. And I think it's disrespectful to assign motive to those individuals that look to maintain, protect their private property, the unique attraction that lured them to those communities. We've heard a lot of that through this whole emotional debate. And I think that needs to stop, because there are many good people that are constrained by economic realities, environmental realities, and just the practical reality of being able to accommodate the high density growth that's necessary for many of the proponents of this bill that we need to address affordable, accessible, and diverse housing. But it's also important to note that when we talk about the sense of local control I just articulated, what we have seen in my experience in our deliberations here, that the state really says local towns, local leaders, local environmentalists, you don't have local control. It is actually the state of Connecticut that allows you to have that degree of control. I think it's a wake-up call for many of our local leaders and local residents that, no, the state of Connecticut's giving their discretion to you to make some decisions. But no. The ultimate decision and the ultimate control is the state of Connecticut telling you what to do with your towns, with your home and your land and your environment. That has been made clear by this bill repeatedly. I think the second part of it is there is a lack of transparency and accountability. I know that's been derided by many of my House members who voted against this. Some of the emotionalities that you saw, there wasn't transparency. This bill, at 104 pages, was presented in the House last night, and it was a bit of a surprise. And I want to give my courtesy and respect to many of the colleagues that try to get this information, to have that public hearing process. So again, the lack of transparency and accountability and due process, well documented. I think many of the people that are going to vote for this bill, many people that voted for this bill in the House, are touting the fact that this bill gives opt-in, that gives the opportunity for these municipalities to be able to opt in. There are no mandates. But the truth of the matter is, it's an illusion. The opt-ins are illusion because the provisions that are provided in the language of this bill says, you're right, you can opt in. But should you choose to opt out, then the punishment, the hammer, comes in the form of no additional state funding for future infrastructure improvements, for school construction, and the most damning of all, for those that have made the effort to be successful in meeting the moratorium of 830G burdens. You're no longer eligible for them. So for those municipalities that have been granted the opt-out, the illusion becomes a harsh reality that, you know what, you don't want to participate, the state's going to make you pay. That is not an opt-in. That is a forced decision of very bad choices, none of them good for the community. I think the consolidation of zoning and planning authorities into the Office of Policy and Management and into the Council of Housing Development. OPM is a direct staff agency of the governor's office. There are no local representation. But OPM is going to have a major impact in dictating the policies that will impact our local communities. The Council on Housing Development comprises of state agencies, political leaders, and agencies impacting, but no local community leaders. We talk about the deviation of no longer having the fair share legislation. Well, under Section 4 and moving on, where our councils of government now becomes the mandate and the determinant and the study allocation of what amount of properties that needs to be built in your community. I would dare to call this council of government, they're an important part of the onset of county government in the state of Connecticut. And there are many, many good leaders and experts in that arena. But make no mistake about it all. To me, this conversion to a regional body making decisions on a regional basis is fair share light. So again, I talked about the rush process. I think it was mentioned by many of my colleagues that why is this an emergency? Are we in a true crisis? Are we looking at the budgetary mandates of H.R. 1 and the supplement to SNAP, WIC, and LIHEAP? This has been an ongoing process that have taken time and evolved. But nope, we're going to jam it through tonight because the votes are there. And it doesn't matter how long we talk about it. It doesn't matter how many rationales we brought forth that this is a flawed bill that had very little shareholder engagement for those that may offer a different idea. It is a flawed and rushed process. I could go on and just bear my frustration in this whole process, but I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we're going to now change a law that's going to impact our community, and we didn't respect the people whose lives are going to be impacted. And for many of my colleagues that voted against or in support of it, I would dare say that they will not know the consequences of what we will be doing tonight. But unfortunately, it's not like buying a jacket you don't like, or that we can change the motor vehicle laws as we've done many times. No, no, no. When we allow someone to permanently change the landscape, the environmental impact and density of our community, and we change the environmental impact that now needs to encounter climate change, nope, we're going to have to spend more money, we're going to deal with flood, we're going to deal with erosion, and let's not even talk about the burden on our municipalities when these kind of high-density developments occur to an aging infrastructure system. Sewer, septic, runoff. The environmental and infrastructure impact cannot be measured. But once this gets done, it's an irreversible process. And how about this? As the ranking member of transportation, talk to any community that have seen tremendous density increases, that roadway traffic has become clogged, unpassable, and a danger to pedestrians and bike and drivers themselves. Where have we considered those solutions? We haven't. We go under the premise that there is a crisis of affordable housing. But when we asked about the true inventory of numbers, it may not be an affordable housing number crisis, it's an access crisis. It is a disproportionate impact on communities that do not have easy access. But again, I could belabor the point. Elections have consequences. It is not lost on me that we are having this special session days after a November election, and that the numbers have reaffirmed that the voter says it's okay. Well, when the damage has been done and it becomes irreversible, and we see these monuments to the results of election results, I hope people recognize that elections have consequences. So I will close because the night is late. But this bill is deeply frustrating for me. I want to find real and sustainable solutions for affordable, accessible, and diverse housing for our seniors, for young people, for the workforce. All the reasons that's been articulated as to why this bill, this rush to decision, is justified. But I don't see it as being sustainable. I also see it as an irreversible impact to the quality of life and standard of our state, of our communities, of people's personal property rights. I'll end by saying this quote: when I think about the supermajority and the rush to exert their power and influence, and disregarding the voices of people that have a representative duty. And I will repeat this quote, and it's one that is important to remember for us in our role as legislators. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. I think it's important for us as legislators to know that the decisions we make will have lasting impact on the people that we make them for. And if we do not respect and engage in all the shareholders and all the impact, then we have done a great disservice to the privilege that we have been given to represent them in this circle. So, Madam President, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I know the hour is late, but I think it's truly important. I'm not going to change the end result of this. And I will do my best as a policymaker to do the best that I can with the laws that we have made in this circle. But it's going to be made infinitely harder. And we will now have to deal with the anger and the emotion and the stunning surprise of the change of the lives of the people that we were elected to represent. And we did not give them a chance to have their voices be heard. And that's disappointing, because we have abused our power and said the arrogance of power overrides the consciousness of doing what's right. Thank you, Madam President.